Emma Whitlow didn't know the history when she signed the dotted line. She only knew the house was cheap, wide, and aching for life again. A forgotten farmhouse nestled off Highway 5 near Hollow Creek, Ohio, just west of the rusted water tower and beyond the last working diner in a town that had forgotten how to breathe since the early 2000s. And she and Joel had wanted space. Space from city noise, from rent increases, from her miscarriages and his silences. So when the realtor handed them the keys and said, "It's been vacant since 2002, Emma just smiled, thinking of paint swatches and the way sun fell over the porch in the evenings, not asking why the mailbox still said Morris in faded Sharpie, or why the front gate creaked even when there was no wind, or why the living room had 13 faint boot prints trailing into the kitchen, too big for kids, too small for men, and on their first night in the house, after the Wi-Fi refused to work and the dog next door howled at their front steps without ever looking directly at them. Joel suggested they drink wine and camp in the living room, the kind of night they used to have in their 20s before grief made them older than they were, and as she dozed beside him, the fire barely glowing in the dusty hearth, Emma heard something soft and far away, the unmistakable sound of teenage laughter, layered and echoing, not sinister, not at first, more like memories pressed between the walls, like the house itself was remembering what they couldn't yet understand, and when she stood and followed it, barefoot across cold floorboards, she felt pulled, not by fear, but by recognition, as though her body already knew the path, up the narrow stairs, down the crooked hallway, to the attic door they hadn't noticed before. Hidden behind a sagging bookcase and inside, amid dust thick as fur and old moving boxes tied with twine, was a single red milk crate with a cracked label reading Senior Night, June 7, 02, and inside it sat an old Sony camcorder, scratched but intact, heavy with something trapped inside, something trying to play, and beside it, a note written in frantic, looping ink that had bled through the paper, "Don't watch the Yendi." She didn't wake Joel, didn't know how to explain the chill that climbed her spine as she brought the camcorder downstairs, where the fire had gone out on its own, the air colder than before, as if something had shifted in the house the moment the crate had been touched, and when Joel saw it in the morning, he grinned like a boy again, cradling the camcorder like some long-lost treasure, whispering, "My uncle had one of these," before popping open the side compartment and muttering, "Weird, it's locked." It's like someone welded it shut, and even as he inspected it, Emma could feel something wrong, like the plastic was too warm, like the lens was watching her back, and that night, the house was colder than ever, the thermostat stuck on 66, and outside the cornfields rattled although the weather app showed no wind, and at exactly 2:02 a.m., the living room TV unplugged, flickered on, and through the static came voices, brief and layered, like 13 kids whispering over one another in distant echoes, play it again, please don't forget us," and Emma screamed and shut it off, but when Joel rewound the security cam footage the next morning, nothing showed up, just a black screen between 1:59 and 2:03, and that's when she knew this wasn't just a haunted house story, this was something older, stitched deep into the walls. And when she went to the local hardware store for light bulbs and mentioned the house off Hollow Creek, the old clerk with the cloudy eyes went stiff and asked quietly, "You mean the Bender place?" And when she said no, it was listed as Morris Farmhouse, he shook his head slowly. They changed the paperwork every time. Too much pain, and he leaned in, eyes like smoked glass, and whispered, "You find that camera yet?" And when she didn't answer, he handed her a flashlight and said, "If you play it, don't stop. No matter what you hear." And that night, as clouds bruised the sky and the wind pressed flat against the windows, Emma sat alone in the attic and turned the lens toward her reflection in a shard of broken mirror, whispering, "Why me?" And the camcorder, dead and untouched, whirred to life and spoke in 13 voices not her own, "Because you're the first one who remembers." Joel called in a favor from his cousin Wes, who ran a tech shop out of his garage 2 towns over, a man who once rebuilt a Super 8 camera just for fun and had a thing for solving mechanical puzzles. And when Wes opened the camcorder and peeked inside with a penlight, his face changed, just a flicker, like he'd seen something he wasn't sure was mechanical at all. "This isn't just jammed," he said, "it's been modified." And when he clicked the power on, the tape inside didn't start at the beginning, it jumped to a timestamp, June 7, 2002, 10:11 p.m., flickering to life on a dusty monitor in Wes's garage, the grainy footage showing a rowdy teenage graduation party, all red plastic cups, late 90s fashion hangovers, and teen screaming lyrics to Complicated by Avril Lavigne, and Emma stood frozen watching it, her eyes locked on the girl filming, giggling behind the lens, panning over 13 kids, one by one, Tommy with the varsity jacket, Maya with the braces and glitter eyeliner, Eric fake chugging a beer and laughing with too many teeth, and each name began to surface in Emma's mind before they were even said, like a list she'd never written but had always known, like someone had whispered these names to her in dreams she couldn't remember, and at 12:14 a.m., the music cut out on the tape. just stopped, and the camera shook violently before steadying again, now recording static air, as if something outside had drawn everyone's attention, a girl off-screen shouting, "It's back. Shut the door." And then a blur, a strange dark blur at the edge of the frame, not human, not an animal, just wrong, a shape the eye rejected, like a figure wearing the absence of light, and then silence, the kind that presses on your chest, the kind that lives in caves and ruins and hollowed-out bones, and the camcorder cut to black, but Wes's monitor glitched once more, showing another flicker. A timestamp that didn't match anything they had recorded. Playback incomplete. Return to origin. Wes pulled the plug, his hands trembling, saying, "This thing's not a recorder anymore. It's a receiver," and Joel laughed nervously, but Emma couldn't, because that night, back in the farmhouse, when the sun had gone and the wind had stilled and the house grew colder than any thermostat could explain, the camcorder clicked on by itself, screen glowing in the dark attic like a third eye, and this time it played only voices, overlapping, static-laced, as though the 13 kids were whispering. From beneath water, repeating fragments like memories breaking apart. "He said we were chosen. We didn't mean to open it. She knows us. She's the one who remembers." And then Emma's name, not whispered but said clearly, sharply, as if someone stood right behind her, and when she turned no one was there, only the mirror shard from the night before, reflecting her face, but different, eyes darker, older. Like they'd seen things her waking self hadn't. And when Joel stormed up after hearing her scream, the camcorder screen went black, refusing to turn on again no matter what button he pressed. And later in bed, Joel chalked it up to stress, saying maybe she was connecting, that didn't exist. Maybe it was trauma, or sleepwalking, or both, and maybe it was, she thought, except at exactly 2:02 a.m., the same time the voices had played the night before, the TV downstairs flickered on again. Only this time it wasn't static, it was the footage, the same party, the same kids, the same date. Except Emma was in it now, standing by the staircase in a hoodie she used to own in high school, watching the party like a guest who didn't belong, like she'd been edited into a past she never lived, and on the screen, the girl holding the camera slowly turned and said, "Welcome back, Emma," and dropped the camcorder, and for a second, the camera angle showed the ceiling of the house, their house, not as it was now but pristine new and covered in handprints, black and child-sized, like soot smears or fingerprints burned into paint, and then the TV shut off on its own, plunging the room into silence, except for the whisper that came next, from inside the floorboards or maybe from below them entirely. "You've started it again," it said, and in that moment, Emma realized the truth she hadn't wanted to admit. She wasn't just uncovering someone else's tragedy, she was part of it, threaded through it, like film stuck in a reel, and whatever had happened in 2002 wasn't finished, it was rewinding, playing again, one frame at a time. Emma began with the names, the ones that kept surfacing in her head before the footage even said them. Tommy Langdon, Maya Sutter, Eric Cho, Sabrina Lin. And the rest, faces etched in the fog of memory, like people she swore she'd never met but somehow remembered anyway. So she searched the town archives, the high school yearbooks stacked in the back of Hollow Creek Library, ignored by years, dust clinging to them like dead skin, and there they were, 13 kids from the class of 2002. All listed as missing, presumed runaway, all smiles frozen in senior portraits with captions like most likely to succeed, or always late but worth the wait. And it gutted her, not just because they were gone, but because she felt something pull when she saw their eyes, like they'd once looked at her, through her, and she didn't know why, and when she brought the yearbook home, Joel warned her to stop, said it was obsession now, said it was what happened after all the baby stuff, trying to fill the silence with ghosts, but she didn't answer because that night, when she closed the attic door and laid the 13 pictures in a circle around the camcorder, the tape inside clicked, and played, not footage but audio, voices layered over each other, distorted and looping like a broken call for help. "Tell them who we were," one boy whispered, and then a girl, clearer, almost angry, "Tell them we tried," and then static, like wind scraping across gravel, and a deep voice that wasn't a teenager's at all, no more running, no more doors, and the sound of something heavy dragging on wood, and then silence, broken only by the wind outside slamming against the windows. And in the morning she called Roman Vega, the retired detective who'd led the original case, and to her surprise, he answered on the first ring like he'd been waiting for this call for years, and when she mentioned the house he went quiet, then said, "You found the camcorder, didn't you?" And when she admitted yes, Roman asked one question, "Did you start dreaming of the door yet?" And just like that, her blood went cold because for 3 nights in a row, Emma had dreamed of a circular room, red light blinking in the ceiling like a dying heart, and a single wooden door labeled 13, with children's voices behind it whispering her name, and Roman agreed to meet, driving 2 hours from Dayton to bring what he called the things they wouldn't let me keep, which turned out to be photographs, notes, and chalk drawings taken from the Bender house in 2002, crude spirals drawn over faces, symbols carved into closet doors, pages torn from notebooks that read things like "We didn't open it, he did, and she wasn't supposed to remember this time," and among them, a blurry Polaroid that made Emma's breath catch. It was the attic, their attic, exactly as it was now, down to the water stain near the window and the crack in the far beam. Only in the photo it wasn't dusty or abandoned, it was full of kids, the 13, sitting in a circle, eyes shut, hands joined, and in the center, a single object glowing faintly, the same camcorder pointed at them, even though the date on the photo was from June 8, 2002, the morning after they vanished, and Roman told her the truth then, or as much as he could, that this wasn't the first group of kids, that something happens in that house every 13 years, like a ritual or a loop, and that in each case, the only clue is that circle, the camcorder, and a missing piece of time between 2 o'clock and 3:13 a.m., and when Emma asked what he meant by loop, he only said, "You'll see it if you don't break it," and warned her, "Don't let it film you, not when you're alone, not when it's recording by itself," and as he handed her one final page, a list of 13 initials burned into wood, matching 13 missing kids from 1989, and 13 more from 1976. Emma realized this wasn't about the party anymore, this was about the house, the thing it housed, the pattern repeating again and again, as if time was being rewound and recorded and played back with new faces, new names, and somehow, she had been in it before, maybe not as Emma Whitlow, but as someone else, and maybe that's why the girl on the tape had said "Welcome back," because Emma wasn't just remembering someone else's life, she was starting to remember her own, across timelines, across loops, as if some version of her had always been in room 13, always standing at the edge of the sea circle, and when she finally opened the closet in the attic that night, the one sealed shut with rusted nails, she found 13 objects wrapped in cloth, each labeled with a name she already knew by heart: Tommy's varsity pin, Maya's glittered notebook, Eric's broken watch, and at the bottom, one final bundle marked a W, which she didn't open, not yet, because just then the camcorder turned on by itself again, its red light blinking, and began filming the open closet, and this time, Emma's reflection in the lens smiled back. Joel didn't believe her at first when she said the attic closet led somewhere else, not until he saw the door himself, hidden behind the collapsing insulation panel, where old would have been patched with something new, smoother, a narrow frame with a faint number carved above it in nail-scratched wood. 13, not a room number, not part of the house's blueprint, just 13. Standing alone like a warning, and the moment Emma opened it, the smell hit them. Both, not rot or mildew, but scorched paper and copper, like burned film, and inside was no closet at all but a circular room the size of a bedroom, floorboards painted in a dull spiral pattern with 13 objects evenly spaced around the edge, a torn Letterman jacket, a melted pager, cheerleading pom-poms stiff with time, a cracked compact mirror, a half-smashed cassette tape, each one labeled in childlike scrawl with a name. Names she already knew, names from the yearbook, from the footage, from the dreams, and in the center sat nothing but dust and a faint outline where something heavy had once rested, like a camera maybe, or a reel, and when Emma stepped in, her vision flickered, not in her eyes but in reality itself, like the world blinked, and for a second the room changed, just for a breath. Clean walls, soft light, and 13 teens sitting where the items now lay, whispering, crying, one of them repeating, "We didn't agree. We didn't all agree," before snapping back to the dusty now, Joel holding her shoulder and whispering, "Did you hear that?" But she knew he hadn't heard what she had, not all of it, and later that night, the camcorder played again, unprompted, the old screen flickering to life with a new clip. The 13 teens in that same room, sitting in a perfect circle. Looking older than they had at the party, more tired, more aware, and one girl, Maya, spoke directly into the lens. "If you're watching this, then it's starting again," she said, her voice shaking. "And we didn't stop it last time, but maybe you can." And then Eric leaned in and whispered, "They never wanted her to remember," and Emma knew they meant her, and the camera cut to static, then flashed a new timestamp. 2:41 a.m. tonight, and Joel begged her to unplug it, smash it, bury it. But she didn't, she couldn't, because a part of her wanted to remember, even if remembering meant breaking something open. And that night, at exactly 2:41, she woke to the sound of the attic door creaking open and a faint red glow pulsing from above, and Joel was gone from bed, his side cold, and the TV downstairs was playing the footage again, except now it wasn't footage, it was live, and Joel was on it. Standing in the center of room 13, confused, turning in slow circles, calling her name. And something else was there too, not visible, not quite, just a shimmer, like heat rising from pavement, moving around him, watching him, and Emma ran, her breath catching as she pushed open the attic door and climbed up, but room 13 was empty. No Joel, no camera, just the same spiral, the same objects, and in the center, a small fresh drop of blood on the floor, warm to the touch, and the camcorder, back in her bedroom now. Played one more clip, Joel's shoe falling in slow motion, hitting wood, the words timestamp locked, 3:13 a.m. blinking at the bottom of the screen, and then everything went black, and when she screamed, no sound came out, just breath, just terror, and the power in the house failed completely, leaving her in perfect darkness with the glow of the camcorder the only light. And somewhere outside the wind shifted, but it wasn't wind, it was voices, 13 of them, whispering her name, asking for something, begging her to go deeper, to finish what they couldn't, to open what they had sealed, and she whispered back, I don't know how, but the answer came at once, a chorus of voices echoing from the camcorder, from the attic, from the walls, you already did. The next day, Emma barely spoke, her hands shaking as she scrolled through Joel's phone, then the security app, then the attic. But he was gone completely, no trace on any feed, no signs of a break-in, just the faint drag marks near room 13 and that one blood drop, still wet, refusing to dry, and Roman Vega showed up before noon, unannounced, clutching a folder so thick it looked like it held more than paper. Like it carried everything he'd never been allowed to say. And when he stepped inside, he didn't say hello, didn't ask what happened, just stared at the ceiling and muttered, it's resetting, before laying out 13 Polaroids taken in 1989, then another 13 from 1976, faces different, but positions identical, same spiral pattern, same circle, same empty space in the center, always reserved, always waiting. And Roman told her the theory he'd never been brave enough to publish, that every 13 years, the house picked a new group, not at random, but chosen. Pulled through time like film being rethreaded, and the camcorder wasn't just a device, it was an anchor, recording one layer over another, tracking memories like static on magnetic tape. And she was now in it, frame by frame, whether she agreed or not, and when she asked where Joel was, Roman said nothing, only pulled out a photograph from 2002 that made her stomach twist. Joel, her Joel, standing in the background of the party, near the snack table, blurry but unmistakable, wearing a Nirvana shirt that didn't exist until 2018, and Emma nearly dropped it, whispering, how? But Roman only said, some people vanish forward. Others get rewound, and then he showed her a clip, one from the backup tape he'd salvaged years ago, labeled Final Watch. And on it, the 2002 kids were not screaming or running, but chanting quiet and low, something in Latin or something older, and in the middle, Maya had tears on her cheeks as she whispered, this isn't sacrifice, it's transmission, and the camcorder began to shake violently before cutting to black. And Emma asked what they were trying to send, but Roman only looked at her and said, maybe not what, maybe who. That night, she set an alarm for 3:13 a.m., her breath sharp in her chest, the camcorder already humming on its own before midnight, even though it wasn't plugged in, and when the hour arrived, she stood alone in room 13, surrounded by the 13 objects, and let the camcorder record her, this time on purpose, and it felt like ice sliding into her veins, like something watched her from inside the lens, not from beyond it, and her voice, unprompted, whispered, we are the in-between, and then blackness. No dreams.
No movement. Just the taste of static.
She woke hours later on the attic floor, Joel's voice faint from the camcorder, calling her name, looping like a stuck cassette, and in it she could hear the others too, the 2002 kids saying, don't let the loop close. Don't let it choose again, and in a desperate act, Emma packed the camcorder and drove with Roman to a condemned school building 8 miles away, following the coordinates hidden in the reversed audio from earlier footage, and there, buried beneath floor tiles in what used to be the AV room, they found something she wasn't prepared for, a reel-to-reel film projector, heavy with rust, and next to it, a single film reel, marked in red, final playback. Carved into the wall behind it in uneven lettering. The film never ends unless you burn the reel, and Roman told her this was the original, the core loop, the first transmission, and that by destroying it, maybe she could break the pattern. But before she could decide, the reel began to turn on its own, spinning faster and faster as the walls around them began to distort, film flickering images onto the broken screen. All 13 students, standing still, motionless, eyes open, mouths sealed, time frozen. And in the center of them, now clearly visible, was Joel staring forward, no longer confused, no longer lost, but whispering the words in sync with the others. Play it again.
Play it again. Play it again.
And then suddenly they all turned to look at her, not the screen but her, as if the film could see through itself, and Roman screamed, now Emma! And she took the lighter from her coat pocket and struck it, holding the flame to the edge of the reel, the celluloid catching with a shriek like it was alive, and as it burned, the air shifted, cracked, roared like a collapsing tunnel, and the camcorder in her bag screamed, actually screamed, before turning off completely, and then the room went silent, dark, Still.
No projector.
No reel. Just dust and heat and her own rapid breath. And Roman was gone.
No trace, no footprint.
Only a folded photo left where he'd stood showing her, standing in the attic of the Bender house in 1976, much younger, wearing clothes she didn't recognize, but with the same eyes, staring directly into the camera, mouthing something she couldn't hear. And the caption beneath it, written in faded pen, EW, first loop. Emma didn't remember falling asleep after the reel burned, didn't remember driving home, didn't remember the sun rising or setting or rising again, only that when she opened her eyes, she was back in the attic, curled in the center of the spiral, the air thick with dust and silence, and the camcorder sat inches from her face, powered off cold, like a toy that had never worked, but when she touched it, the screen lit up without a sound, showing a countdown, 13 minutes, ticking down second by second, and with it, a title screen appeared, not one she'd seen before, with the words final loop, recording in progress, and she heard her voice, faint and distant, narrating something she didn't remember saying, if you find this, don't rewind.
Don't press play. Don't remember.
But it was too late. The attic floor began to hum beneath her, vibrating like film spooling through an ancient reel, and then the world blinked, shifted, twisted, and she was no longer alone. Across from her, sitting cross-legged in the dust, were the 13, Tommy, Maya, Eric, Sabrina, all of them, not as ghosts, but as echoes flickering in and out like unstable footage, eyes wide, lips moving but no sound emerging, their forms glitching as if struggling to stay in this frame, and Emma whispered, I burned it. I stopped it. But Maya shook her head slowly, mouthing, you broke the film, not the loop. And then behind them, a door opened, not the attic door but one that hadn't existed before, tall black, marked with the same red number, 13, and the camcorder turned itself toward it, rolling forward on its own like pulled by something magnetic, and Joel stood just beyond the threshold, not blinking, not breathing, mouth open, eyes black, and said, it won't let me leave until someone takes my place. And Emma realized what it had always been doing, not killing but capturing every 13 years, trapping souls in frames, in loops, in unfinished recordings, and that the camcorder wasn't haunted, it was the prison, and the final part of the ritual wasn't watching, it was completing the story, giving it an ending, because unfinished tapes always rewind, and she turned to flee but her body wouldn't move, her limbs too heavy, her breath too slow, the attic now pulsing with a ticking countdown, for minutes and 12 seconds, and she saw her reflection in the lens, not herself anymore, not entirely. Her mouth twitching into a smile she didn't feel, her voice inside the camcorder now saying, play me again, and Roman's photo lay near her foot, curling at the edges, now showing her alone in the center of the attic in 1963, with different clothes, different hair, but the same posture, same spiral, same fate, and she knew then what the loop really was, a transmission through people, carried by memory, trauma, and repetition, not time, and it would go on unless someone ended the story before it could repeat. So with one last breath, she grabbed the camcorder and ran to the barn behind the house, the one mentioned in Vega's final note as the final cut point, and there, beneath the trapdoor hidden under the hay, was a pit of ash and shattered glass. Old reels, old film, old cameras, discarded but still humming faintly like buried electricity. And as the timer on the camcorder hit 1 second, she held it high above the pit and whispered, no more, and threw it down, and for a moment, everything was silent. Truly silent. And then the sky cracked, not thunder but static. And the farmhouse lights exploded, and room 13 collapsed inward like a black hole swallowing only memory, and Emma screamed without sound as the light swallowed her too, and then, nothing. Days passed. Or years.
The house sold again.
A new couple moved in.
Young, cheerful, unknowing.
And in the attic, behind a wall no one ever checked, was a mirror. Cracked.
Covered in dust.
And in its reflection, only for a moment, was a woman no longer there, mouthing something the new owners couldn't hear.